My name is Justin Snyder. I teach at Alamance Community College. I've been teaching in the Horticulture Technology Department for 12 years now. I've always had a passion for horticulture, and growing up I really wanted to work in the green industry. That was my goal and desire. My parents were both teachers, so I was one to say I never want to teach. I don't want to do what they do. I want to do something else. But through happenstance, I found that I love this field and I love sharing the knowledge that I had in it. Had the opportunity to teach in a high school, and just fell in love with the students and what we were teaching, and from that moment on knew that despite what I thought growing up, teaching was what I was meant to do. Well, with our students, as we try to prepare them to be successful and enter in the green industry, our goal is to provide them with the hands-on skills that they need to go out and open their own company, to work at a high level for another company. So our focus is on hands-on instruction. A lot of what we do involves going out and building or operating equipment. So we try to take those things that they would do in a landscape company and break them into small sections. Make sure that they know how to operate equipment, they know how to build a waterfall, they know how to lay sod. So any of those things that we can do, we give them those hands-on skills and opportunities to take and master those so that then they can take those into the profession. For me, the most rewarding thing about teaching would be seeing our students successfully get jobs. Obviously at the community college, we're preparing students for employment. So for me, when a student goes out, finds a job, and then in a year or so calls us back and says that that I've been successful, I'm now running a crew, or my company's growing, I'm hiring new people and they want to hire from us. It's those conversations, it's those things when we know that they've been successful in the field that they've chosen to follow. I think if you were to ask my colleagues about myself as a teacher, I think they're going to say that, or I hope they would say that I'm hardworking, that I provide a lot of opportunities for our students, that I'm right out there with them, that as they're doing, I'm doing as well, that our students are excited to come to class every day, and that they just see a passion within our whole department that hopefully starts with me and works its way down into our students. I believe my strongest asset as a teacher is just my ability to work with the students, students of every age group, of every background. One of the unique things about the community college is we have students from 16 to 65 and all in between. We have students with no experience in horticulture to those that are already working in the field, students with advanced degrees in other areas, and they all come together into one classroom. And being able to take that really dynamic group of students and mold them into one cohesive group where we can all learn the skills we need to move them forward in the green industry, I think is probably my biggest asset.
My name is Cliff Meeks. I teach at the Burlington School. This is my 13th year in education. I chose to become an elementary school teacher because I wanted to have a more direct impact with our community. This is a second career for me, and I felt like I'd have more far-reaching impact as an elementary school teacher in my community. I feel like my colleagues would describe me as a hard-working, dedicated individual that sets high expectations for his children and seeks the best from them. The most rewarding thing I find in teaching is working with these children on a day-to-day basis and seeing them reach their fullest potential. Working with those children that may have a little self-doubt or not have the confidence, and be able to build that confidence within them and that self-esteem. One of my favorite lessons was a unit we did this year. It was we did a community service project with a food drive for animals, for dogs. And we incorporated Because of Winn-Dixie. So we had a literacy tie with that book. And we, like I said, the kids raised a substantial amount of dog food for local dogs that are shelter dogs. We looked at the advertising of food bags. We looked at grams, kilograms, the weights of the bag. We did some estimation. We did some word problems with the food. We were able to tie in, like I said, we did the social studies tie-in with the community service and with the literacy tie-in. It was a substantial unit, probably about 7 weeks to finish it. And then of course we did a writing activity through one of the shelter dogs that we met by the name of Texas Pete. And the children were asked to write a story through his eyes with his journey from Texas to North Carolina to his current owner. I think the greatest challenge for teachers is a lot of the mandates that come down the pipeline. Here at the Burlington School, I don't have to worry about that. I'm able to do my art, I'm able to teach, I'm able to differentiate and make adjustments to my lessons as I see needed, as opposed to having to teach certain things at certain times. I have a much more flexibility. My long-term plans are administration. I finished up my master's in administration 2 years ago, made the move from public education to private, kind of living the life right now in the private sector. But long-term plans are definitely to get into administration.
My name is Amanda Miller. I teach 4th grade. I mostly teach reading, but I also teach social studies some, and I've been teaching for 8 years. I was offered a scholarship in college that gave me the opportunity to have my college paid for, and it kind of led me into teaching. I was not always certain that I wanted to be a teacher, but after getting into the classroom and getting to experience what it would be like, I became more confident that that was really what I wanted to do. And 8 years in, I would never do anything different. So I really love working with the kids, and I love working with the adults too, and collaborating and sharing ideas. So that's why I became a teacher. I think my strongest teaching asset is being able to develop relationships with students, because without that trust and that relationship, they aren't able to open up enough to allow themselves to really do the kind of learning that we're asking them to do in school today. You know, to really go deeper and to take those risks. And to be a learner, you have to be a risk taker. So I think building relationships and working closely with them really has helped me to be a better teacher. I really like using new types of programs, computer programs, technology, because when you get to use the new things, then the kids get really excited about it. So each time you use something different, they're excited, so that becomes like your new favorite. So picking a favorite is, I think it's impossible, because I always want my new thing to be my favorite. It always is my favorite. A particularly memorable moment in my teaching career would probably be the opportunity that I was given this year to take those kids to a second year and to be able to have them twice, because I knew that when I got that phone call and she told me I was moving up, I knew that I already had those relationships built with those kids that were going to allow them to be successful and for us to really have a successful year. And while new students came along with them, already having that foundation built in my classroom really provided us with just the base work to go even further this year. So I think you want the memorable moment to happen in the middle of the year with the students, but mine really happened when that phone call came that said, you get to go on, and that's really what I wanted. So that was really memorable for me, and being able to have those kids twice. I find most rewarding about teaching is working with the kids and being able to come in and see them every day and to see how they grow and change over time. I love to look back at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year and how they are different. And I'm really excited about this group because I've had some of them for 2 years, seeing how they've changed in 2 years. But I kind of dread that last day of school too, because you have built those really strong relationships with your kids, and I know that will be a really tough day.
My name is Ryan Bird. I've been teaching at Eastern Alamance High School for the last 5.5 years. I've been teaching math. This semester I'm teaching Math 2 Honors, AP Stat, and Math 2 College Prep, CP. I actually never wanted to be a teacher. I put that inside the portfolio, but I remember the feeling that I got when I first met one of the biggest impacts in my life, which was Nina Cheek. She was my junior English teacher, and it wasn't that I remembered everything she taught in English class. It was the way she made me feel and the way that I felt after I left her class, not only every day, but even after the junior year ended. She made me feel that I could pretty much do anything I ever wanted to do. And after having her class, that's what really made me decide to want to be a teacher, because I liked that feeling that I had, and I wanted to share that with others and, you know, empower our future to be able to do whatever they want to do as well. The most rewarding thing about teaching is interaction with the kids on a daily basis. Like, I do not have kids of my own, so I kind of adopt my students as my kids, per se. Just seeing their faces every day, kind of interacting with them. They each have their own personality, their own strengths and weaknesses. Some are really good at math, some are really bad at math, some are mediocre at math, but it doesn't matter. You actually get to know them for who they are, and just talking to them, engaging with them is one of the most rewarding things. I think they chose me as Teacher of the Year because I do hold them to high standards, but the relationships I have with my students are really, really strong. I hold them highly accountable for their actions. I care about them a lot. If I'm not preparing for my lessons the next day, I'm out there supporting them on their athletic teams. I'm in the community. I'm not a 8 to 3 teacher. I'm an 8 to 10 teacher, where all of those extra hours are spent either supporting my students or supporting the school, or just being there for them anytime they need it. Some people say that you can learn to be a teacher, but some people say that you're just born to be a teacher. My department chair always reminds me that he's like, there are certain people that are good at this, and there are certain people who are great. And then there's you. You were just born to do this. This is the job that was made for you. And I kind of take that to heart, and I just kind of roll with it, because I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
My name is Sharon. I teach statistics, physics, and discrete math at Graham High School. This is my 2nd year here and my 10th year teaching in North Carolina. Since as long as I can remember, I've always loved numbers. I've been good with numbers and math. I've never had a male teacher, so the only role model I had was my father, who was great with numbers. I saw the way that he tutored kids and how much fun he had with that, and it was actually kind of his encouragement was to go into teaching with something that he was passionate about. And since I was about 7 years old, it was something that motivated me and made me want to connect that with my students, the same way I watched my father interact with kids when he was tutoring them. I try to help my students relate math concepts to real life by showing them what kind of job opportunities it opens up, explaining the basics that you won't always go to a job interview to try to calculate perimeter or an area, but that it will open up a side of your brain, and if you continue to open that up, what type of advanced thinking it creates. With this current economy, you can always have a job if you have a degree that is background in math or science. And so with physics and statistics especially being hot topics lately, I love teaching those classes and explaining what those possibilities are. The most rewarding thing about teaching is seeing the look on a kid's face when they finally get a concept, or seeing those kids that have always struggled in math or have been behind and they excel in a class, or they tell you for the first time they understand a concept better because of the way you've presented it, or the way that you've invited them into the classroom and the relationship that you've created with them, which is why it's great teaching seniors but so hard with them leaving each year. But that's why I love teaching seniors, is to create that connection with them. What I hope my students get from me is that I care about them. I don't just want them to excel at math or understand the content that we're doing. I don't expect every one of them to love math and science and walk out of the classroom getting ready to go into that career field. I try to emphasize the importance of that and the opportunities it will open up, but I really just want them to feel invited, have fun in the classroom, and realize that you can have fun and learn math at the same time, even though it scares most adults. One of my most memorable moments was in and around the time that I was debating whether or not I would even continue with teaching, was 5 years ago. I met Miss Holmes at the middle college. The kids that I had taught there had like a 95% success rate on the EOC. One of those kids was borderline dropping out of school. We worked together in summer school, and that student not only graduated, we still keep in touch. And I would say that's just one of probably 40 or 50 different kids that in 10 years, I know that I've been fortunate enough to reach. And it's almost like, even when I was thinking about giving up on teaching, I knew that I had to stay with it because it's always been something that I've been passionate about. It was never about the pay, it was never about the hours and anything like that, but about helping the students and wanting what I didn't have in high school and middle school that I wanted for my kids to have.
My name is Melissa Wood. I have been teaching for 4 years. I am currently at North Graham Elementary, where I teach 1st grade. When I started college, I started in a nursing major, and I went through one clinical rotation and learned very quickly that that was not for me. And about the same time, I saw a flyer advertising for an education major, so I thought that sounded like something I would be interested in, and so I volunteered one afternoon for an after-school program, and I just fell in love with the career and all the aspects of teaching, and it was then that I knew that that is where what I wanted to go into. For myself, the most rewarding moments, there's a lot that happen in the classroom, but a lot of times it's places like the playground and the cafeteria. Like when I eat lunch with my kids, that's where the conversations come up about things that aren't necessarily academic, but I learn about their life and just what's going on. And I like to attend their soccer games and their basketball games, so that's where we kind of talk about the fun stuff. So it's really rewarding to hear all of the little details of their life in addition to all the academic accomplishments they make throughout the year. My colleagues would probably describe me as quiet at first until you get to know me, and then I'm very outgoing. I like to collaborate a lot, work together. I do a lot of team teaching with other teachers. And in the classroom, I try to tell my kids the most important thing is to be kind to each other. So I would hope that's what my colleagues would say about me, is just the kindness and the respect aspect. Since I teach first grade, my students, they say this quite often, that I'm very funny, which other adults probably wouldn't agree with that, but to a first grader, my jokes are hilarious. They love them, so it works well. One memorable moment that I had in my teaching career was the very last day of my first year of teaching, and it was the very end of the day, and I was teaching fourth grade at the time. So we all sat in a circle, and I went around to each student and I told them that year what had been a special moment that stood out to me, or what was very special to them about me that I would always remember. And I went around and told each of them that. And it was just this very special time, kind of recapping on the whole year. And then when I got to the final student, I told them, what their special thing was. And then I was going to say, move on to the next thing. And they all said, no, Miss Wood, we have to stop. We want to each go around and tell you one special thing that we remember about the year. And it was just kind of that community, we'd been working on that throughout the entire year. So just to have that, for them to take ownership and want to go around and share their moment, it was very special to me. I would say my strongest asset as a teacher is bringing creativity in with the academic component. I really like for my students to have to use their imaginations and just to have that creativity component in the lesson, and to teach students that we have to have the critical thinking component, but we also have to have the creative thinking component. So I love taking a lesson and having all of the academic objectives and then seeing how I can take that and just make it creative, and to where students really have to stretch their imaginations and really go a lot further with whatever it is that we're working on.
My name is Kelly Nelson. I am a fourth grade teacher at South Mebane Elementary, and I teach general education. I have been teaching for 11 years. I chose to become an elementary school teacher because at an early age, I've always really enjoyed children, but in high school, I took some classes where I went into elementary schools, and I found I was really good at it, and I really enjoyed it, and I had a knack for explaining things in a way that kids can easily understand. I think my students would describe me as fun, energetic, enthusiastic, patient, really loving, and really caring. The most rewarding things about teaching are probably just the everyday interactions with the kids, just building those relationships and having those inside jokes and laughing and just enjoying our time together. Also, seeing kids later in life and having them come up to you and tell them the things that they remember about your class and the things that they remember about the things that you did together, especially the little things that you really didn't think were that big of a deal, or things that you never realized that a child thought was really important, and 5 years down the line, they still remember those things. So, and the kids saying thank you to you for things that you do for them. It's really important. One of the most memorable moments that I've had in my teaching career is the first year I started teaching. I came in January. I graduated college in December, and I took a job in January, and the school that I took the job at was the lowest school in the county, and it was in one of the 10 lowest counties in the state of North Carolina. I was the third teacher that those children had had that year. They had gone through 2 other teachers where the teacher couldn't take it and gave up on them. And when I entered that class in January, the kids were really beat down. They didn't have a lot of confidence. Emotionally they were low, academically they were low, and it was a very tough class, and it was probably the toughest class that I've ever had. And in that short period of time, just in 4 or 5 months, we built the strongest relationships, the most amazing relationships, and an awesome classroom climate and atmosphere. And the kids really started believing in themselves and really gaining a lot of confidence. And at the end of the year, every one of those kids passed the end of grade test. So probably the day that my principal called me in the hallway and said, "How many kids in your class do you think passed?" And I couldn't even fathom that she was going to say every one of them. And it was amazing. It was incredible. And being able to celebrate with those kids and being able to prove to them through their actions that they were successful and that I did believe in them and I wasn't going to give up on them and I wasn't going to leave them. It was amazing. I'll never ever forget that. It was an awesome day.
My name is Nick Anders. I am the ag teacher at Southern Alamance High School. I focus on horticulture science. I believe my students would describe me as a teacher as maybe their favorite uncle or big brother. I try to be a role model, and I really stress respect and work ethic and all that, but I'm also kind of an easygoing. I joke and play with them and hang out with them, and we play ping pong at school together. I go to their sports events and cheer them on, and you know, spend a lot of time with our kids inside the classroom, and then through FFA we do a lot of stuff outside the classroom. So usually kids come in our program, they spend 2 to 3 to 4 years with us, so it's really unique there, where unlike most teachers who teach a kid once and that's it, I have a whole 3 or 4 years to develop relationships with my students. My wife says this is my first home and my home is my second home because I spend a lot of time here. I'm the first teacher here every day. I'm one of the last ones to leave. I wear many hats at school besides ag teacher and FFA administrator, FFA advisor. I'm also assistant athletic director, so I help take care and maintain the athletic facilities on campus. But I like to play golf, I like to fish and spend time with my wife. I just kind of taught her into playing golf a little bit. So, but I also like going to see my kids participate in what they do outside of school, being at sports or whatever. But I don't have any children, so my high school students are my kids in a way. Describe a memorable moment in my teaching career. This is my 10th year. I've had a lot of success in the FFA, from winning state and national titles. But I would have to say there's a young man that sticks out in my mind. Every time I think about him, it tugs on my heartstrings. It makes me feel real, you know, I about cry over it. A young man had MS. He would come in our program. I remember the first day I get in my classroom, and I actually had planning period before my next class came in, and it was ag science, and it was freshmen. And all these freshmen come running in the classroom, and there's already a kid in the classroom, and I look in the back, and he's moving chairs, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's moving the chairs with his wheelchair, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting my spot. It's gonna be my spot the rest of the year. That's where I'm gonna sit. I said, okay. And he was limited to the wheelchair. He had MS. His name was TJ Thompson, and TJ didn't graduate. He ended up passing away over the Christmas break. But I never, ever heard that young man complain. Never complained about the weather, never complained about being tired, never complained about being hot, cold. Oh, I don't want to do this work. I don't want to do that. We'd come out in the shop to clean up and sweep. He was in a chair. Give me a broom. I'm going to sweep. We were doing tool ID. He was going to do it. If we were drawing something, he was going to draw it. Brilliant mind. Never had any problem with homework or classwork. Just TJ was a special kid, and he had a special place in my heart, and he still does. And his mentality, or his work ethic, his determination. You know, every time I kind of feel like, oh, I don't want to do this, I think of TJ, and I jump right up and go to work. So that's one of my most memorable moments.